Good evening, everybody, and welcome to live session number 4 out of 21. My name is Bex Spiller. I'm the founder of the Anti-Burnout Club, and I'm doing these live sessions, 21 of them over 21 days, to answer all the questions that you guys have got around stress, burnout, overwhelm, and everything in between. Now, I'm feeling a little bit emotional today, and I'm not sure if it's pregnancy hormones or because I find this topic really difficult, but it's one that came up so much when I asked what topics you wanted to see, what questions you had, and it's all to do with social isolation. So social isolation, oh, my teeth have fallen out, and burnout are two things that go hand in hand. And today we're going to talk about why that might happen, why that might be, why it's not great for us, and also what we can do about it. So that's the topic of conversation today. Hello, Helen. Hello, everybody. Less hot today. It is boiling. I am so hot. It looks really miserable outside. It's been raining and storming, but it's really, really muggy, and it's 31 degrees in here. So if I start sweating, we know why. And it's not just because I find this topic difficult. But shall we begin? Let's begin. And please do pop in the comments any experience that you have with loneliness and isolation and burnout, because I think that it's a really, really important topic. It's one that's not covered enough, and it's really good for people to share their experience, because when you know that you're not completely alone in this, it can really, really help. So why do we isolate ourselves when we're struggling? That is like the first question. And there's lots of different reasons for this, and you might have your own reason, but there's some common threads that kind of join social isolation and stress, overwhelm, and burnout all together. So I'm going to go through a couple of the most common ones, but please do, if there's any that you've experienced, please do let us know. So the first one, and I think that this is really common, is that we're worried that we're going to burden other people with our stress. So hands up, who is worried that when they're feeling stressed, when they're feeling burnt out and overwhelmed, that if they turn to their friends or their families or their colleagues, they feel as though they're going to burden them. And this is really, really common with those who have people-pleasing tendencies as well. We don't want to be the person that turns to other people. We want to be the person that other people turn to, right? So we think, well, everyone's got their own stress. My stress isn't worth it. I'm not going to burden other people with it. I'll just keep it to myself. And I'm then not going to talk to my friends or my family or my loved ones about what I'm going through. So that's the first reason that we might isolate ourselves and we might pull away. The second reason is that actually, when we're stressed and when we're overwhelmed, our brain only has so much capacity, right? So we're thinking already about work, we're thinking already about all the stresses at home, and the thought of then trying to be social on top of that, adding something else to the to-do list, seeing friends, seeing family, or whatever it is, can feel really overwhelming. Like, I don't have time for that when I've got so many other things to do. So that might be a reason that, again, you start to pull away, and it's not deliberate. You just genuinely don't have the time. You don't have the brain capacity to spend time with friends and family and loved ones. Number 3 is that we might become easily agitated when we're really stressed and when we're burning out, and we get a little bit snappy. And because of this, we push people away. And again, it's not deliberate. We don't mean to do these things, but when everything feels overwhelming and everything is on top of us, we can push people away because we're so agitated, and we're not generally stressed with that person, but particularly if there's someone that's very close to you. For example, my husband, he would get the brunt of all my stress and agitation, and I wanted to just push him away. Go away, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want you next to me, go away. Because that's what happens when we're burning out. So it becomes this kind of catch-22 situation where you probably do need that person for support, but at the same time, you're really agitated, you feel stressy, I guess, and you don't want that person near you or to talk to them for support. And then the last reason is that perhaps you just don't have the people there. You don't have the strong social support network that some other people may have. So, particularly as adults, and I think this is why I find this topic so hard, as we get older, it seems to become harder to make friends, right? Like, it's not as easy as it was in school, where you're put in a class with 10, 20, 30 other kids, and you kind of picked your favorites and you hung around for however long school was, and perhaps beyond that as well. And if you're lucky, then maybe you've got school friends that you've grown up with. But as we get older, we don't have that same, perhaps we have colleagues that we get on with, but it's not as close generally as it is at school. So being an adult and trying to create social circles and relationships and stay connected is really, really hard. And we saw this in particular get even worse during the pandemic when we were all stuck inside. I know a lot of people are still working from home, or they're working remote, hybrid. So we just don't have the same opportunities to connect that we did when we were children and when we were teenagers. And this can make social isolation really, really difficult. So there are lots of different reasons why we may feel isolated, why we may feel lonely. You may resonate with some of these, with all of these. I know that I recognize a little bit of all of these in my own sort of burnout journey. And the irony is that one of the best ways to relieve stress, one of the best things to do for long-term resilience and for happiness, is to have a strong social support network. And so we get stuck, right? Because we're isolating ourselves, or we feel as though we don't have that strong social support network. And that contributes to stress and to burnout. And then we get agitated, and then we push people away. And it just goes on in this cycle, right? So it's something that we really, really need to do. And there've been so many studies into why isolation and loneliness is not very good for us. I don't like to go all doom and gloom, so you can look them up if you want. But it's really, really important that we stay connected. And that's the reason that Foundation 3 of our 5 foundations of wellness is connection, because it is so, so important. And it really depends on your reasons for social isolation as to how you can deal with it. But I'm going to go through a couple of actionable things that you can do. And like I said, please do share your experiences, because this is something that I do still struggle with, and I am trying to get better at it myself. But when you're in the depths of stress and overwhelm, it can be really hard to make sure that your social relationships are thriving as well. So we're going to go through some tips and tricks. The first one that I've got for you is called opposite action. Now, this is particularly helpful if the reason behind social isolation is perhaps you feel a bit anxious. I used to have agoraphobia and really, really bad social anxiety. So that was another great excuse for me to isolate myself, a great excuse for me to not go out and see people, was because it made me too anxious. So opposite action is a DBT, that's a mouthful, theory and model that basically says take the opposite action. It really is as simple as that. But if you isolate yourself because you're not feeling great, if you isolate yourself because you're feeling anxious about seeing people, then the cure is to take the opposite action. Now, I know that that is a lot easier said than done, particularly if it is due to anxiety. Now, look at this situation that I'm in right now. This gives me crazy anxiety. And so I'm doing 21 days of it to move forward with this anxiety and to try and rid myself of it, because it's really, really hard when you're stuck doing something that perhaps is an unhelpful behavior. It is really, really hard to break it. So I appreciate that opposite action is like an extreme way of, it's like exposure therapy of throwing yourself out there, getting out there, meeting new people, doing all of these things. And I will link on Facebook and in my stories the article for opposite action, so you can see exactly what that looks like and how that works. The next thing is, if it's because you find social relationships overwhelming right now, then to schedule in small little chunks of social time. So this doesn't have to be an hour going for a coffee if that feels too much right now. It could be 10 minutes replying to text. Now, if you look at my WhatsApp, you'll see that I am awful at replying to people, and I just kind of like turn all my notifications off. So this is something that I'm going to start doing, is scheduling in just these small little batches of social time where I'm like, okay, I know it's another thing on my to-do list, but I also know that it's really good for me, because when I do speak to the people that I care about and that care about me, I start to feel better, and it starts to feel like a weight has been lifted. So if you feel overwhelmed trying to keep on top of a social life, then just schedule in these tiny little bits of time. It could be a text message, it could be an email, it could be writing someone a letter, just 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is, and then start building on that. So maybe 10 minutes for the first couple of weeks, 20 minutes, and then start reaching out and saying, actually, can we do that 1 hour coffee? Another tip that I've got here is to combine your social time with other activities. So if you already do things like you take the dog for a walk every day, or you take the kids out to, I don't know, wherever kids go, zoos and stuff, then bring people along with you. Don't feel as though you have to do it on your own. Use those 10-minute text time to say to people, do you want to come with me on a dog walk? I don't have a lot of time to do anything else, but I do this anyway on the daily, so why don't you come with me? Or I already go to the gym, or I already go to a yoga class, why don't you come with me? So thinking about how can I combine something that I'm already doing. I mean, it could even be asking people if they want to come around and help you tidy your house. Depends how nice your friends and family are, but really thinking about, like, what do I do every day, or what do I do once a week on the regular, and how can I incorporate some social time into that? That could also be things like classes and hobbies. So this is something that I'm doing, getting out of my comfort zone, is I've done yoga in my house for I don't know how long. I run the Anti-Burnout Club. We have loads of yoga, so I do it at home. But every Monday evening, I've been going to a yoga class that's outside of the home. And the first time that I went, I sat in the car and I cried, and I was like, I'm not going in. I refuse to go in. I'm not doing it. And my husband was like, please, 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 go on. I promise you, if you don't like it, then what's the worst that's going to happen? You'll never see them again. Doesn't matter. So I went in, I did the hour class, I came out and I booked the next one straight away. I was like, this is the best thing I've ever done. I loved it. It was so nice to meet so many people that, because it's a prenatal class, so many people in a similar situation to me. And yeah, what is the worst that's going to happen? You never have to go back. And that is something that has taken me some time, many, many years, because I'd much rather do things at home. But being in that situation and meeting those people was like, actually, I can do this. And if I didn't like it, I really could just leave. So book clubs, crafting clubs, whatever it is that you like to do, if you find that the reason of social isolation is because you don't have a strong social support network around you already, then this is a great idea. Also volunteering and online community clubs. So like the Anti-Burnout Club, if you're a big book reader, then I really recommend Shelf Help. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they are fantastic. So they're like an online book club. There are loads and loads of places where you can come together as a community that aren't necessarily out and about. If you do struggle, if you have severe anxiety, or even if you have something like agoraphobia, there are ways to stay connected online. But if you can get out and just say, look, what is the worst that can happen if I turn up to this class and I don't like it, I never have to go back, then I really, really recommend it. And then the last one, and this really is dependent on where you are in your stress and your burnout journey and how you feel about the situation, but something that really, really helped me was therapy. Was once a week seeing a therapist. And I appreciate that the waiting lists are crazy, crazy long right now. Even if you are top priority, even if, for example, you're pregnant or whatever, it can take a very long time to get a therapist. But putting yourself, self-referring, putting your name down now gets the ball rolling. And there are lots of different ways that you can do this. So if you're not a big fan of leaving the house to go to therapy, or if you're not a big fan of doing phone calls or video calls, then there are text therapy services. IESO is a great one. If you are in the UK, if you search IAPT, that will bring up the NHS page, and then you can search for what therapy options are available in your area, basically. And also, if you just search therapy, Google generally knows where you are, and so will look for things in your area. Avoid the paid for ones if you can't afford it. Like, that's not an option for 90% of people. If you can afford it, wonderful. Then I recommend finding a proper therapist, as opposed to the app type things. But if you can't afford it right now, get on the wait list, and just having someone that you can talk to once a week can really, really help get the ball rolling with other social connections as well. Whew, that is it. I've spoken for far too long this evening. Thank you so much for joining me. I really hope that you found this helpful. Please do, as I pop this on the grid on Instagram and on Facebook, if you have any suggestions, if you are there for other people and you want other people to message you and start building connections, please do comment. Let everybody know. And if you're not already a member of our free platform, then join, because we've got forums and discussions, and it's a lovely place to meet other people as well. So have a lovely evening, and I will see you tomorrow for... I'm not sure what we're talking about tomorrow. I don't have my notes with me, so no idea. We'll find out tomorrow together. Have a lovely evening, everyone, and I will see you soon.